Zayukum and and welcome to another episode of The Bond. So I appreciate that you're here because what we're going to be doing today is something that's much more interesting. We're going to be delving into the prehistoric world of dinosaurs, or as we might call it today, reptiles. So did you know that in normal snakes, melanin, which is a pigment responsible for colorization and like eye and skin color and hair color, it's a production in snakes controlled by something called melanocytes, or different types of cells. So it's a primary function in the production of melanin pigment, which is responsible for all the different types of colors that we have in a variety of different creatures. But sometimes nature gives us a bit of a curveball. Sometimes a snake can go ahead and have something called albinism, or being an albino. And what that means is that there's a couple of different types of albino, but in nature, being an albino is a huge drawback because it means that they are more susceptible to prey because they don't look like the rest of their fellow creatures. So in snakes, when you have an albinism, it's something that makes it a lighter color scheme. You can sometimes see patterns on the scale still, but in the wild, albinism is a disadvantage. It's because the snake loses its complete ability to camouflage itself from predators. And in captivity, it can be a very unique trait and a very sought after trait. So in the wild, bad; in captivity, good. So let's embark and talk to George and Mitch from Jay's Prehistoric Pets to help us understand the business that Jay Brewster built himself with Prehistoric Pets and the world, or the zoo, that they have created with these wonderful, wonderful creatures and reptiles. So when you witness an albino python, you'll notice that, like an albino rosy boa snake, it's very much like a peachy color because it's not a complete albinism. You still can detect a pattern on their scales. But then my heart was tugged at when I learned about their little baby alligator. This alligator was so tiny, it looked like a baby, but apparently it was about a decade old. Why was it so small? Well, when I was conversing with George and Mitch, they told me that this particular alligator actually suffered a calcium deficiency because it was in captivity. And that's one of the reasons why they got it as a rescue gator or alligator. It was small because it did not have enough calcium when it needed it as a baby. So that's another reminder that we should all make sure that we eat nutritiously so that we can grow up big and strong. So when I see this creature, it's a real reminder of how important it is for us to be responsible, not just in the wild, but also with everyday pet ownership for the purpose of wildlife conservation. So if you have the majesty of a beautiful python to a baby alligator, every creature has a tale to tell. It's a delicate balance between human interaction and the preservation of the natural world. But studies have shown that when we bond with things like reptiles, it can be just as effective as bonding with the family dog. They've actually even developed a model to predict snake bites in different locations. AI, or AAI, actually stands for Animal Assisted Interventions. And this is a form of therapy where human stress levels are actually reduced by the presence or bond that's made with an animal, or sometimes a reptile. Another set of researchers actually also found that participants who interacted with animals actually reported feeling much more relaxed and less stressed than participants who did not interact with reptiles. So does that mean that a reptile now can also be a comfort animal? Well, maybe more research is needed on that point. But every reptile actually has its own way of discussing and sharing and communicating and building that trust with another person. So if you happen to have an animal that you've found, you can donate it to the zoo if it's a wild animal, or If it's something that is an animal that's allowed to be domesticated, like a dog, you can go through the process of adopting it and learning to build that bond. But with reptiles, it's a little different because they don't have the same verbal or nonverbal communications. The only way to build a bond with a reptile is through trust. Even tarantulas, they're these gentle giant spiders, and they actually also are very useful for keeping the insect population in check. They eat things like roaches and crickets and beetles and other things that we may not want to deal with. And they themselves also become food for birds and lizards and even pythons. Pythons, for example, can range in size from 2 to 33 feet, and that's about 10 meters in length. They can get up to 550 pounds, which is 220 kilos. So we have something called a reticulated python, which means that it can reach up to 32 feet or 9.7 meters. And we also have a green anaconda, which can also be about 30 feet long. That's about 9 meters in length. And they can get up to 550 pounds. So George and Mitch have a passion for these reptiles. And it was really interesting how much that they emphasized how important conservationship is, and how it's really important that even if you are an owner of a domesticated or a rosy boa snake, something that you're allowed to have, that you need to still be a responsible owner. Feed it properly, treat it well. But let's go ahead and see all of the wisdom that Mitch and George have to share with us. Let's go ahead and listen to that interview. We're here today with Jay's Prehistoric Pets, and I've got with me Mitch and George. So thank you, George. Mitch, I've got to say, this bright sunshine yellow constrictor, tell me a little bit about him.
Well, this is the smallest snake on the world. No, I'm totally kidding. This is a Burmese python. She's albino. That's why she's showing the yellow and white colors. Normally they'll be brown, black, or tan colors. Yeah, I don't know. This beautiful
How much does she weigh?
I was going to say about 200 pounds easily.
Okay.
You know, I haven't been to the gym in a while, but I'm definitely breaking a sweat here.
Okay. And let me just ask you, George, tell me a little bit about your bonsai tiny alligator.
This guy was a rescue gator that the police actually brought in. They found him inside of someone's garage.
Oh, wow.
So he's going to stay much smaller than he would originally. He should be about like 7 feet, but
why is he so small?
They did not feed him properly. He didn't get calcium for his bones to grow, so his growth has been stunted. A lot of their main amount of growth is in the first like 10 years of their life. So
he's actually, because he didn't get the calcium he needed when he was a baby, he actually stayed this size even in adulthood. So how old is he?
Yeah. We think he's about like 10 years.
So he's not going to get any bigger.
He should get like maybe 2 feet bigger. Like he should get around 4 feet, but he shouldn't get.
That's if he even grows that big. Yeah.
If he grows.
That's if he grows that big. But yeah, he's been stunted because he wasn't raised properly. And now, you know, he's at the zoo as an ambassador and making kids smile and families happy.
So how do you learn about these mistreated reptiles and take them into rehab?
Well, with this guy in general, he got brought in by the police.
Okay.
But usually we have people donate animals when they feel they can't take care of them anymore. They'll just bring them in to us. But yeah, this guy, the owner got arrested, and when they were searching his house, they found this in their garage.
Wow. That's a heartbreaking story. Now, were there any more? How often does this happen?
Not too often.
That's good. So animals and reptiles are not mistreated too frequently.
Too often, yeah. I mean, we get donations quite a lot from people who don't think they can take care of it anymore. Their kid doesn't want it anymore. But with exotic stuff like this is probably the only one I've seen in the past couple of years.
Tell me, how do you build a bond with a reptile that doesn't speak a language, doesn't utter anything? I mean,
You just have to build trust with it and make it know that you aren't a threat to it. That's the main thing. They're all scared of you. Even the big pythons, they're terrified of you for the most part. If you were to see a wild one, they're going to try and get away from you. You see a wild 10-foot gator, they're most likely going to run from you. So you just have to get that fear out of them and really get them to just trust you.
And what is the difference between snake handling and reptile?
Lizards the gators is completely different, but the snakes, it's just a lot of heavy weight.
I saw you did coochie-coo to his little chin.
Yeah, he does that. He scratches behind his head too. He'll close his eyes.
So like a little dog.
Yeah.
So can you walk him on a leash?
He wouldn't do the best at that. He just tries to run. When he's down on the ground,
So how much training can you do with reptiles?
Most reptiles are they are mainly like instincts, so you can't train them too much, but with gators you can train them with voice commands. I've seen people get them to where they can have them like come to a position, stop, and they'll listen to them, and like they'll tell them open their mouth and they'll open their mouth. So the gators, you can train them quite a lot with voice commands, but the other ones, it's more instinct. They just react.
So what would be your suggestion if somebody wanted to go ahead and build a bond with one of these reptiles or snakes? How would they do that?
Usually food. With the gators, at least, you need a lot of food. Snakes, it's just handling and getting them used to you. And lizards, it's a lot of handling.
Okay, so can you tell me what sort of relationship you have with the spiders?
You can.
I stay away from them.
I can see that. Thank you, Mitch.
Other than this one, this is a tarantula. Tarantulas tend to be very chill, relaxed spiders.
And hairy.
And very hairy, yes. I'm sure George has a little more information on tarantulas than I do, right?
So tarantulas, they usually will not bite as long as you are gentle with them and you just let them walk. So they just think they're on the ground or on the surface, not on you. But
Can he be a designer one? A couture spider?
There are nicer ones that are more colorful, but tarantulas are just, all I really know about them is that the females are much more desired. They live longer. The females live 20 to 25 years, so it can be an actual pretty long dedication to own it.
Looks like Mitch is getting a tarantula facial.
Well, I'm trying to break.
And he's also getting a massage with this.
Getting it all good here.
Well, now what kind of a snake is this?
This is a rosy boa.
Now, why is he orange and cream?
I believe because it's an albino, just like that big Burmese python you were holding.
So tell me about the color pigmentation. Why is it that only yellows show?
Albinism, with snakes, most of the time it'll show up as a yellow, red, or orange pigmentation. It's basically like, it's just the way that their patterns up with the albino gene. So you'll see more of those yellow colors, like your Ferrari you're talking.
Now, are any of these animals used in like pictures or Hollywood pictures?
All the time.
Some of them, yeah.
How do you train them, or how do you get them used to a busy set?
I think since they're in the zoo with a lot of people around, usually, that they're already kind of used to that. But I think it really just takes like a specific animal. There's probably just one that's more calm and more worked with people than others that they bring.
Do you think a reptile can train another reptile? Like if one learns a skill, will they train another one if you bring them into their pen?
It depends on the species. It depends on the intelligent level of the species. It depends on where they're from. It depends on if it's a communal species. If it's a lizard like a chameleon, like on that wall right there, you can see that chameleon. Sorry.
We need our audience to hear you.
I know. Then that's more of a solitary animal.
The chameleon.
Yes, there are like the iguanas who do like to be in groups at a time. And some even have like hierarchies where there's like an alpha male and he's got his ladies and all that fun stuff. So
I won't ask those questions.
Too, yeah.
So tell me a little bit more about the behavioral structure of a bunch of gators together. What is that called? Is that called a...
I don't know if
like you have a clutch of eggs,
word for like a pack of gators, but
or
hierarchy.
clutch of gators or hierarchy
Usually
of gators.
the gators are-
Does anybody know what a gator group is?
No.
No.
I'm not too sure.
Okay, we'll figure that out later and maybe put it on the screen.
But I know that the gators are much more likely to be together and males next to each other and multiple females. The
Do they mate for life?
sometimes I believe the female will stay around with one male if possible, but they will fight with other males, and if that one passes away, then they'll switch. But with crocodiles, it's usually one male and a ton of females around him, no other males in the area. Gators are more communal and fine with each other.
So that's the primary difference between alligators are more communal and crocodiles are more bad boy?
Yeah, with their behavior, at least that's the primary difference. Crocodiles are much bigger usually, and at least with the saltwater crocodiles and the Nile crocodiles, they're going to be actually trying to eat people. Gators don't necessarily
Eat people?
They do every once in a while, but they don't necessarily hunt them. It's like an opportunity thing, like a gator that's been being fed by people, and then it just grabs someone. The crocodiles will actually hunt people and try to get them. But
So can you tell me a little bit more about what we have going on in some of these cages? It looks like you have another albino, so I'm guessing you have you've got a lizard here. I don't know if that's an iguana. He seems to be hiding. Is that
he's a frilled dragon. So
a frill dragon? Now tell me about that.
they're from Australia and Indonesia. They have when they open up their mouth, they have a frill that opens up, kind of like the dinosaur from Jurassic Park, and the one that spits venom.
A raptor? Okay.
They don't spit venom in real life, but they do have that frill. That's what that dinosaur was inspired off of.
Okay, and can you tell me about this spotted
Down there is,
constrictor?
yes, that is a reticulated python. That's what Jay,
Reticulated python?
yeah.
What that is.
Reticulated is the main or the natural pattern that they have. That's obviously not their natural pattern. That's through about 30 years of breeding them and getting different genetics out of them and combining those genetics to make it look like this. But that's basically what Jay focuses on mainly, is breeding reticulated pythons and making new ones that look like this. Really.
So having really unique patterns so that you wouldn't find anywhere else. Okay.
Not
Okay.
nature at all.
Okay. And then it looks like you have a turtle over here. So can you tell me a little bit about your turtle? First of all, how old?
Is it a turtle?
Is it a tortoise?
Oh yeah, it's a tortoise. So yeah, so this is a radiated tortoise. They are native to Madagascar. That's my favorite place on the planet, where they have the craziest reptiles.
Okay.
See like their pattern and their structure
Really nice.
and everything. Can we put it on the ground? Can you guys see it on the camera on the ground here? Let them walk around. Anyway, so yes, this is a radiated tortoise native to Madagascar. They can live up to, I think they have it recorded 180 years.
That's the oldest. And how old is this
They
one?
have recorded. How old is this one?
I have no idea. He's probably 40.
Yeah.
40 years old.
40 years old, given on the size, yes. I'll put them up.
And I'm noticing the shells are very like little tiny pyramids. Is there
Yeah.
any sort of a function to that?
Not necessarily. Each different type of tortoise has a different shell structure. Normally, with most of your tortoises, they are usually very smooth, but the radiated tortoise has these awesome spikes and these awesome designs on the back.
Yeah, I was noticing that. So tell me about how these creatures are endangered.
Oh, I'll tell you right now. As you can see, the shell is very beautiful. Poaching is what makes these endangered.
Really? So
You'll see native people in Madagascar collecting these by the thousands, tying their legs up, putting the shells in bags, and then shipping them off somewhere, and then
they kill the creature?
pretty much.
Shell?
Pretty much.
But isn't there a way of manufacturing something like this synthetically?
Yeah, 3D printers.
Okay, yeah, so they don't need to do
No,
that.
we don't need to.
Okay, so what is a unique feature about the behavior of this?
Of a tortoise. Well, in general, they have a really good self-defense mechanism. They can go into their shell and hide from any predator. Also, I don't know. Let's see. What else? What makes a tortoise is that they're mainly vegetarians.
Oh, okay.
So they have a wide variety of things they can eat in the wild because normally there's vegetation everywhere, especially in Madagascar.
Would they eat tree bark?
If they were very hungry, I'd say yes, maybe tree bark, maybe.
Okay. And how do you know how far they can see, or do they see in the dark, or is there anything unique about their vision?
Bad vision, I think.
They have bad?
I think they have bad vision. I think they rely mainly on their sense of smell. Like if you can even look at him right now, he's sniffing. You can probably even hear it in the mic. Put the mic up to him, you can hear it.
Do you want to say something to our audience? Yeah? Oh, the interview made. Come on out and have a chat.
There you go.
Chat. You want to have a chat? Aw, he's a beautiful creature.
He's camera
really
shy.
Beautiful. Really beautiful. Well, I want to say thank you so much, gentlemen, for spending the time and explaining what you've brought here today and what's unique about it. And I just want to ask one last thing of each of you. If you were to give advice to somebody who is in the city that wanted to learn how to bond with nature, what would be the benefit of doing that and how would they go about it? Can I ask you to answer that? And then I'd also like to ask you to answer it with your perspective.
Well, I think nature in general is one of the most grounding things for a human to do because we're all from nature, you know. We all live in these cities. Being in nature, being in forests is, you know, it's healing. You know, we've all been on a hike. It feels amazing. Working with animals, that is just something that, for me, just takes it to the next level. So nature, being out in the wild, looking at all the beautiful things that have evolved over time, that, I don't know, it just makes me so happy. I love nature, I love animals, that's all I can say.
So your recommendation is get out and volunteer at the zoo? Or?
My recommendation is get out in nature, go out on hikes, go to different zoos. If you're just get out with animals, get out in nature. Yeah.
Thank you. And what about you?
About the same thing, just go out to...
You can't say ditto. You can't do that. You can't say ditto to what Mitch said.
Oh, okay.
You have to come up with something else.
I'm trying to think.
Okay, so what would be your tip to someone about why it's beneficial to get in with nature? Or how they could do that? What would be your recommendation? How would you engage someone who's a city slicker?
I mean, it's beneficial just because of, city life and just life in general is pretty stressful. So getting out in nature can really take a lot off your shoulders and just kind of give you that time to relax and kind of think about things. But yeah, my main recommendation on what to do would just be hikes or going to the beach and fishing and stuff like that, because I like to actually really interact with animals. So if I'm going on a hike, I'm looking for snakes, and if I go to the beach, I'm going to be looking for stuff too, or trying to fish or something.
And then you bring them back to Jay's prehistoric pets?
No, but if we could, we would, but
okay.
We're not allowed to.
Well, thank you, Mitch. Thank you, George. Thank you so much for taking the time. This has been another walk and another lesson in how to bond with nature. Thanks. We'll see you next time.
Rigato Kultene, and welcome back. We want to thank George and Mitch from Jay's Prehistoric Pets, owned by Jay Brewster himself, because they shared such a wonderful story with us. And great, fabulous tips on how to care for reptiles and get back to bonding with nature. I hope you have now a new appreciation for the place that snakes and lizards have in our world and how we can build that trust bond relationship with them. Not just with snakes, but also with tarantulas and alligators, big or small. Remember, nutrition is important, but each creature has its own instinct that we humans need to respect. We don't want to go ahead and change them. These are not domestic pets. They have a certain set of stewardship and responsibility, which is mandatory. So if you have any questions, go ask your local zoo or somebody at Prehistoric Pets. I actually adored how that albino python snake was as yellow as an Italian sports car. And it broke my heart to learn of the mistreatment of that alligator and how they really need calcium, which I think means chewing bones. But I want to urge you to cherish and protect the wonders of nature. This planet is the only one we have, and we want to protect it for generations to come. So may you bond, and may nature continue to inspire and uplift you. And remember, nurture nature to make connections better with the people in your life and make life truly extraordinary, from humans to wildlife. And until then, until we bond again.